"You can keep the water," she said. "You'll need it more than I do." Then the door slammed. The SUV's engine purred like something satisfied. I watched the tires spit a red cloud into the air, watched her taillights shrink until they looked like a wound closing. And then, nothing. Just wind, sun, and the sound of heat gnawing at the road. The silence was violent. I could hear my pulse in it. I bent down, picked up the bottle she'd left by the yellow line. Half full. Still cold enough to sting. I almost laughed. "Mercy," I said out loud. But the desert didn't believe me. For a long minute, I didn't move. There was no reason to. The sun had already chosen sides. The road had already taken hers. You'd think I'd be angry. Scream, curse, chase. But anger is loud. And loud things don't last long out here. I've learned to let quiet do the heavy lifting. I took one sip. The plastic crackled, weak as her excuses. Then I started walking. Each step pressed the sound of gravel into memory. Each breath was a promise I hadn't made yet. No traffic. No shadows. Only the long black strip running between me and whatever came next. She thought she'd left me stranded. She thought this was an ending. She never understood. I build from nothing. The sun cut into my neck. The smell of rubber and dust stung my nose. A hawk screamed above, small and mean, circling something I couldn't see. Maybe me? Maybe her. I looked down the road. There, far ahead, the horizon trembled, the air itself unsure of what it was seeing. I tightened my grip on the suitcase handle. "All right," I said to no one. "Let's begin." And I walked. The road kept breathing, slow, steady, alive. My shoes didn't. Each step peeled another layer off the soles until I could feel the heat through them. The suitcase thumped against my leg like a heartbeat that refused to give up. A sound rose behind me, faint at first, then swelling, a heavy diesel growl eating miles. I didn't turn until it was almost beside me. A semi. Sun-bleached red, chrome dulled by years. It sighed to a stop, brakes coughing dust. The door opened with a groan that sounded like sympathy. "You look baked," the driver called. "Need a lift or a miracle?" I shaded my eyes. "Whichever gets me to town faster." He laughed, a full, real laugh, the kind that doesn't ask questions. "Name's Gus. Climb in, partner." The handle was hot enough to brand me. The cab, though, was cool. Air conditioning, diesel, and old coffee. I settled in. The seat sighed, swallowing my weight. "Where you headed?" he asked. "Just away," I said. "For now, that's enough." He nodded, as if he'd heard the story 100 times and learned not to ask for the ending. The truck rolled forward, swallowing distance with a rhythm that could calm a war. Out the window, the desert blurred, a smear of red and bone and sky. From this height, the highway looked smaller, almost merciful. I pressed my palm against the glass, feeling the hum of the engine under my skin. It felt like a pulse I could borrow. Gus handed me a thermos. Water, cold. I drank. It tasted of metal and gratitude. He kept his eyes on the road. "That your car back there?" "No," I said. "That was my past." He chuckled once, not sure if it was a joke. "Fair enough." We drove in easy silence, the radio whispering old rock songs that remembered who they were before fame ruined them. I watched the sun slide lower, turning the desert gold, then bruised purple. After an hour, we reached a small town. Just a bus depot, a diner, and a row of tired trucks. Gus pulled in and killed the engine. "End of the line for me," he said. "You sure you're okay?" "I will be," I told him. "You just helped me start something." He grinned. "Then we're even." I climbed down, suitcase first. The ground felt different now, less empty, more deliberate. The bus station door squealed when I pushed it open. Inside smelled of bleach and waiting. The clerk behind the window looked up once, then back down. No one ever sees the stories that walk in thirsty. "One ticket," I said. "One way." She slid it under the glass without comment. I paid cash. Always cash now. On the bus, the seat was cracked vinyl. I pressed my suitcase between my knees and watched the desert fall behind me, the light thinning until everything was shadow and reflection. Somewhere in that rearview distance was a bottle of water, still standing by the road, catching the last sun like a candle at a funeral. She thought she'd left me there. But the thing about leaving a man like me alone is that's when I start thinking. Tomorrow, she'll wish I'd stayed lost. Home didn't greet me. It waited. The taxi headlights swept across the front of my house. Brick, steady, ordinary. The kind of place built before people thought safety came from passwords. I paid the driver and stood there with my suitcase, watching his taillights fade into the street's dark throat. The night was still. The kind of still that carries judgment. I hadn't been gone long, but everything looked older. The porch light dimmer, the windows blank. The air smelled of damp soil and lemon polish. Laura's scent. She'd been gone 6 years. But the house still whispered her name when it settled. I turned the key. It fit. The door opened. I was inside. The silence was different from the desert's. The desert silence was raw. This one was layered. Years of conversations fossilized into the walls. My footsteps echoed softly across the wood floor. The clock in the hallway ticked without apology. Nothing here had changed. Except me. The suitcase leaned against the wall, coated with the red dust of that road. I could almost see her in it. Jessica's reflection in the tinted SUV glass, her mouth tight with impatience. "You'll understand someday," she'd said. I was starting to. I walked into the kitchen. The kettle was still on the stove, the one Laura bought because she said it whistled with purpose. I filled it, lit the burner, and waited for the sound. Old habits build bridges when your world cracks. When the whistle came, it was sharp, the kind of sound that slices through thought. I poured the water over a tea bag, watched the color bloom and spread. It looked like ink bleeding across paper. Signatures, promises, power of attorney. All the things that had built this quiet betrayal. I sat in my chair, the same old leather one that had softened to my shape, and stared at the photos on the mantel. Laura smiling, Jessica gap-toothed, the three of us at the canyon before the world got too clever for simple love. The photo looked back at me like it was asking a question I already knew the answer to. I took my first sip. It burned, but the burn was good. It told me I was still here, still capable of making choices. On the table, my phone lay face down, the same one Jessica had insisted I buy last Christmas. "You need to stay connected, Dad," she'd said, smiling that smile that never quite reached her eyes. Connected. That word had done more harm than good. I turned the phone over. The screen woke. Black, clean, empty of missed calls. For a moment, I stared at my own reflection in it. Then I found the contact I hadn't used in months. Ben Carter. Ben wasn't just my lawyer. He was the man who'd stood beside me in a delivery room 40 years ago, when Jessica first arrived screaming at a world that already belonged to her. He'd been there when Laura died, when I built this house, when I signed the papers I now regretted. The phone rang once, twice. Then his voice, steady, gravelly, familiar. "David, you all right?" I looked at the cup in my hand, steam curling upward, quiet as thought. "Ben," I said, "I need to see you. First thing in the morning." A pause, then that old professional calm. "What happened?" "Let's just say I finally saw the blueprint from the top down, and it's time to rebuild." He didn't press. 8 a.m., he said. "My office." "Thank you," I whispered, though it wasn't gratitude. It was confirmation. I ended the call and set the phone back down, screen dark again. The house was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the faint ticking of the clock. I leaned back, tea cooling in my hand, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The plan had already started forming. It wasn't anger shaping it. Anger burns too fast. This was something older, heavier. A slow architecture of consequence. Outside, the wind moved through the trees like breath returning to a body. I took the last sip of my tea and whispered to the empty room. She wanted me to sign everything away. I will. Just not the way she expects. Then I turned off the light. Tomorrow morning, I'd pick up a pen. And everything that once belonged to her would start coming home. Ben's office hadn't changed in 30 years. The same heavy oak desk. The same wall of law books that smelled like dust and deadlines. The same window overlooking the city. The one he used to call my one indulgence. When I walked in, he was already standing, jacket off, sleeves rolled, pen in hand. His eyes met mine. And for a moment, there was no lawyer in him, only a friend measuring the quiet damage in my face. "Sit," he said. His voice was soft, but it carried the weight of decisions made behind closed doors. I sat. The chair creaked the way it used to when Laura and I came here to sign our first mortgage. Funny how Wood remembers what you forget. He didn't ask the polite questions. He just waited. "She left me," I said finally. He frowned. "Jessica?" I nodded once. "Middle of the desert, took the car, left me with half a bottle of water and a lie about my own money." For a long time, the only sound in the room was the clock ticking. Then Ben exhaled slowly, a sound like a door closing. "She didn't just cross a line, David. She demolished it." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "I'm not here for outrage. I'm here for architecture. I want to know what I built that let her think she could do it. And I want to tear it down piece by piece." His eyes flicked to the file cabinet. "Everything we've ever signed is in there. Trusts, titles, power of attorney." He opened the drawer, pulling out a folder thick with paper and memory. My name was written on the tab in his precise handwriting. He laid the folder flat, palms on either side. "This," he said, "is the blueprint of your life. And like any structure, it can be rebuilt." I felt something stir in me, not anger, not satisfaction, something quieter. Resolve, maybe, the kind that hums under the ribs. Ben flipped through the documents. "Here's the problem. The power of attorney gives Jessica managerial access, but not ownership. That means if she's used it against your interest, and leaving you in a desert qualifies, we can revoke it immediately. No argument." He turned another page. "The penthouse? Still in your name. The accounts? Shared only by privilege, not right. She's been playing house with borrowed bricks." He set the papers down and looked at me. "You ready to take it all back?" "I don't want it back," I said. "I want it protected." He studied me. "Protected from her?" "From what she's become," I answered. "From what I let her become." That line seemed to settle between us, heavier than law. Ben opened a clean pad and started writing. His fountain pen scratched with the sound of permanence. Step 1. Revoke her authority. Step 2. Freeze every joint account. Step 3. Establish a new trust. One she can't touch. Not now. Not ever. He paused, looked up. "You want to name it?" I thought for a moment, staring at the light slanting across the desk. Dust motes floated like tiny waiting verdicts. "Yes," I said quietly. "The Laura Sterling Memorial Trust." Ben's eyes softened. He nodded. "That's a good name. Strong foundation. Built on love, not guilt." He wrote it down, each letter careful, deliberate. "Once this is signed," he said, "she's locked out. Legally, financially, and permanently." I reached for the pen. It was heavier than I remembered. The kind of weight that means something. My signature used to be an act of trust. This time, it was an act of survival. The ink bled dark and final. The sound of pen on paper was the sound of doors locking and bridges burning. Quietly. Completely. Ben slid the documents into a folder and closed it with a single, firm tap. "It's done," he said. Outside, the city hummed. Cars, wind, the restless noise of people still learning their lessons. Inside, the silence between us was clean. I stood. "Thank you, Ben." He gave a faint smile. "Don't thank me yet, David. She's going to come looking for what she thinks she's owed. Be ready for that knock." I picked up my hat, nodded once. "She can knock all she wants," I said. "The locks are changing tonight." And as I walked out, I felt the strange calm of a man who has finally stopped digging graves for the undeserving. The locksmith arrived before noon. A quiet man in a blue shirt with his name stitched over the pocket. Eddie. He didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer stories. That's the kind of trade I respect. He glanced at the front door, at the old brass lock that had opened for my daughter too many times. "Replace the whole set?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Every door that touches daylight." He nodded and went to work. The first turn of his screwdriver was sharp, surgical. The brass plate groaned, metal parting from wood, memory separating from habit. Each sound echoed in my chest like a hinge tightening around something that had been too loose for too long. I made us coffee. While it brewed, I sat in my armchair, the same one Laura used to scold me for never throwing away. From there, I could see the front door wide open, sunlight spilling into the hallway, framing Eddie's silhouette. It looked almost biblical. A craftsman at the gate, closing it to ghosts. The house smelled of sawdust and fresh air. For years, it had smelled of perfume and tension. Jessica dropping by to check on things, always leaving with something missing. A signed check. A piece of me. Not today. Eddie removed the old lock and placed it on the step. It was dull, worn smooth from 1,000 careless entries. He unwrapped the new hardware, stainless steel, heavy, unblemished. It caught the light and threw it back, unafraid. When he installed it, I heard the deep, clean thud of the new deadbolt sliding into place. Not a click. A statement. The sound of a man reclaiming ownership of his life. "You'll need new keys," Eddie said, handing me a small ring with 3 of them, edges still sharp from the cut. I took them, turned them in my hand. "Feels like they weigh more than the old ones." "They should," he said. "They're yours." He left without fuss, just a nod. The van drove off, its hum fading down the street. I stood by the door, alone again, but differently alone this time. Not the kind born of abandonment, the kind born of control. I locked the door. The new latch made a low, certain sound. It was final. Beautifully final. Then I sat down with the folder Ben had given me. Page after page of clean paper. Clauses, signatures, safeguards. I read every line twice. Each one was a brick in the fortress I was building, a wall between who I had been and who I was becoming. Midway through, I paused at the title page. The Laura Sterling Memorial Trust. Her name in print. It hit me harder than I expected. For a moment I closed my eyes. I could almost hear her voice again. That calm, certain tone she used when she knew I was about to do something reckless. "Well, David," she would have said, "are you doing this to hurt her? Or to heal yourself?" "Both," I whispered. "But only one will last." The clock ticked toward afternoon. The sunlight moved across the rug like time pacing the floor. I reached for Ben's pen. Heavy, familiar, honest. My hand didn't shake this time. I signed the documents with the steadiness of a man hammering the final nail in a coffin he refused to climb into. When I finished, I sat back, listening to the quiet. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was space. Room for something new to breathe. Outside, a breeze lifted the curtain. The world went on, unaware that an old man had just rewritten his story from the inside out. I turned the last page, pressed the folder closed, and laid the keys on top. 3 small pieces of metal, glinting like a promise. By the time the sun dipped behind the trees, I knew I'd done what most people never do. Locked the door not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Somewhere across the city, a sound I couldn't hear began to echo. A soft electronic beep. Harmless. Ordinary. But for her, it was the beginning of an ending. Jessica was probably in one of those boutiques where the music is soft and the prices are secret. She'd be holding something absurd, a purse the color of champagne, stitched from something that once had teeth. She'd smile, the kind of smile that demands approval. The salesgirl would swipe the black card. Beep. A polite pause. A frown. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It seems to have been declined." Jessica would blink, certain she'd misheard. "That's impossible. Try again." Beep. The sound would cut through the curated music like a blade. The air around her would shift, invisible eyes turning toward the woman who'd built her image out of borrowed light. I wasn't there to see it, but I didn't need to. I knew the choreography. She'd pull out another card, platinum of course, and toss it toward the counter. This one. Beep. This time, the silence that followed would be longer. The salesgirl's smile would tighten, her tone turning careful. "I'm terribly sorry." Jessica's voice would start to fray around the edges. "Run it again." Beep. 3 small beeps, like nails tapping on a coffin lid. That was when her hand would tremble. Just a little. She'd glance at her phone, ready to call Kyle. She'd still believe in glitches, in errors, in temporary inconveniences, but some things don't glitch. They end. When the call connected, her voice would drop to a hiss. "Kyle, both cards just declined. Dad's accounts, the ones you said were fine, they're frozen." I could almost hear him on the other end, stumbling through his excuses. "Bank systems are weird lately. Probably maintenance. Give it an hour." An hour? That's how long it would take for the next message to appear on her screen. 4 words. From me. I'm home. Safe. David. No accusation, no explanation. Just a small statement of fact. Because I was done explaining. I pictured the look on her face. That perfect control melting. That sudden, raw understanding that her father wasn't stranded anymore. That the silence she'd mistaken for defeat was preparation. She'd leave the store in a rush. The expensive bag forgotten. Her reflection chasing her across the glass storefronts. Every step would echo the sound of loss she'd never practiced hearing. Back at my house, the air was cool. The new locks had settled into their hinges like bones healing straight. The kettle hummed again, a small, loyal sound. Ben had called earlier. "Everything went through," he said. "By the book, quiet and final." Good. Quiet and final. That's how integrity should sound. I looked around my home, still half lit by the last of the day. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like ownership. She thought she'd left me behind. But the truth was simpler. She'd just freed me to start over without her shadow. Out there, in the city I once helped design, my daughter was learning a lesson the hard way. When you build your life on someone else's name, you'd better pray they never decide to take it back. By the next afternoon, the world had adjusted. Mine to peace. Hers to panic. I was sitting in my armchair when I imagined her footsteps echoing down that polished hallway. The same hallway I once helped her pay for. Her heels would be sharp against the marble, her anger louder than her breath. I didn't need to be there to see it. I'd drawn this blueprint myself. She would reach the penthouse door. Her door, or what she still believed was. She'd fish out her key, that gold-plated little symbol of ownership, and slide it into the lock with practiced ease. Then it would stop halfway. Refuse. A clean, solid obstruction. I could almost hear her confusion. That tiny gasp when privilege meets resistance for the first time. She'd pull the key out, check it, force it again. The metal wouldn't budge. And that's when she'd ring the bell. Once. Twice. Harder. "Dad," she'd call. Her voice would carry its old tone, the one that used to make me move faster. "This isn't funny. Open the door." Only silence would answer. A new kind of silence, the kind that tells you the world has been rearranged without your permission. She'd knock harder now. Then pound. Her composure cracking, her voice rising, shaking. "Dad, open this damn door!" But the door would remain unmoved, indifferent, as all boundaries should be. When her strength ran out, she'd slump against it, chest heaving, palms flat against the cool wood. And that's when she'd notice it. A single sheet of paper, folded neatly in thirds, taped at her eye level. Official paper. Heavy stock. The kind that doesn't beg to be read. It demands it. She'd tear it off the door, unfold it with trembling hands. The header would hit her first. From the law offices of Benjamin Carter. I can almost see her lips moving as she reads, trying to decode the language of her own undoing. Notice of title transfer. Revocation of permissive occupancy. Effective immediately. But those are just legal words for something simpler. You are not welcome here. Her eyes would find the heart of the page, the line printed in bold. Property now held in the Laura Sterling Memorial Trust. Her mother's name. The name she'd used like a charm whenever she wanted something from me. Now carved in law as the one thing she could never touch again. I wonder if she'll notice the detail Ben and I agreed on. The trust seal pressed deep into the paper, raised like a scar, embossed with permanence. You can feel it under your thumb. You can't erase it. Standing in that hallway, with her key useless and her reflection trembling in the polished brass, she'll finally understand. This wasn't revenge. It was removal. The luxury she mistook for love had been an inheritance of habit. And now, even habit was gone. Here, in my quiet house, the kettle began to whistle. A small, ordinary sound, the sound of order returning. I poured my tea, steady hands, no shaking. Somewhere across the city, my daughter was learning the language of consequence, one clause at a time. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed. Because closure doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with paperwork, silence, and a lock that finally fits only your key. The first call came just after sunset. I didn't even look. The phone vibrated on the table. One short, angry pulse. Then stopped. I kept reading. Then came the second. And the third. And the fourth. By the fifth, the rhythm was frantic, like someone knocking from underwater. The name on the screen glowed through the glass tabletop, the letters warping in the lamplight. Jessica. For 40 years, that name meant movement. It meant get up, fix it, drive over, pay the bill, sign the paper. Now, it was just light. And light can be ignored. I turned the phone face down. Outside, rain began tapping on the windows, soft at first, then steadier. The house listened with me, old wood and older memories breathing in sync. The kettle clicked off. The air smelled like lemon and steam. I took a sip of tea. Hot, sharp, grounding. The kind that reminds you of who you were before you started explaining yourself to people who stopped listening. The phone buzzed again. Longer this time. A voicemail. Then another. Then 3 in a row. She was escalating, moving from shock to anger to fear. The human ladder we all climb when the world stops answering back. Once, that would have broken me. Once, I would have called just to hear her breathe, to make sure she was okay. But I've learned something in the quiet. Not every cry deserves an echo. The rain grew heavier. It made a rhythm against the window, steady, certain. It covered the small, frantic vibrations on the table until they felt distant, almost irrelevant. I closed my eyes and listened. Not to the phone. To the sound of peace returning. 10 calls became 20. Then 30. At 35, the anger would have burned itself out. The apologies would begin. The promises. The tears. I pictured her pacing the penthouse hallway. No, not hers anymore. The echo of her own footsteps must have sounded strange there now. She'd be holding the phone tight, voice shaking, trying every tone she'd ever used to win something back. Dad, please. Can we just talk? Dad, this isn't you. Dad, answer me. And when none of it worked, she'd go quiet too. That kind of silence that hums with realization. When the phone finally stopped buzzing, I let the quiet linger. I didn't rush to fill it. I just sat there, one hand around my mug, the other resting on the cool arm of the chair, feeling the weight of the moment settle evenly across the years. You spend your life thinking the hardest thing is losing someone, but sometimes it's choosing to let them lose you. I turned the phone over again. 55 missed calls, no new messages, just that tally, her panic, recorded in numbers. I pressed the side button and powered it off. The screen went black. The house went still. Outside, the rain slowed to a whisper. Somewhere in that sound, I could almost hear Laura's voice again. Calm. Certain. Proud. You did what you had to, David. You finally built something she can't tear down. I finished my tea, poured the last drops into the sink, and watched them swirl away. For the first time in years, I slept through the night, without waiting for anyone to need me. Ben's conference room didn't believe in comfort. Everything in it was made of glass, chrome, and consequence. I arrived 15 minutes early, as I always did when I knew the ending before the others arrived. Ben sat opposite me, his sleeves rolled up, his eyes clear. You ready? He asked. I nodded. Been ready for 40 years. Just didn't know it. He smiled faintly, then straightened the stack of documents in front of him. Each one carried the kind of weight that doesn't raise its voice. At exactly 11, the door opened. Jessica entered first. Kyle followed a half step behind, his suit too new, his confidence already cracking. They looked like people walking into a storm they'd convinced themselves was just bad weather. Dad. Her voice tried for composure. You've made a mistake. Ben gestured toward the seats opposite us. Please sit. This isn't a discussion. It's a record. Kyle smirked. You can't just freeze assets without cause. We acted in his best. Ben slid a document across the table with the calm of a surgeon setting down a scalpel. Article 4, subsection C, he said evenly. Acting in the grantor's best interest, abandoning him on a highway with no means of contact, Mr. Thorne, constitutes a profound breach of fiduciary duty. The smirk died quietly. Jessica looked from Ben to me, searching for the old softness in my eyes. It wasn't there. Dad, she began. You're not hearing both sides. I heard yours, I said. My voice didn't rise. It was the sound of tires on gravel. The color left her cheeks. Ben continued, steady as a metronome. As of yesterday, your authority under the power of attorney has been revoked, permanently. The accounts have been secured. The penthouse property has been transferred into the Laura Sterling Memorial Trust. She blinked. What? What is that? Ben turned a page. A charitable trust in your mother's name. Its sole beneficiary is Haven House for Women. Effective immediately. Kyle leaned forward. That's fraud. Ben didn't even look up. That's justice, Mr. Thorne. Jessica's voice cracked. You gave away my home? No, I said. I reclaimed your mother's. You just forgot who it belonged to. For a moment, none of us spoke. The rain tapped softly on the window, same rhythm as that night she stopped calling. Ben slid one last page across the glass. This, he said, is a summary of expenditures from Mr. Sterling's secondary accounts. Funds you controlled. $15,000 for a resort. $22,000 for jewelry. $6,000 monthly labeled lifestyle consulting. Would you like to explain to your father how that benefited him? Jessica's lips parted, but no words came out. Her mascara had started to run. Kyle shifted, looking for a door that wasn't there. I reached inside my jacket and took out a single photograph. The one of Laura standing in the Arizona sun, the canyon behind her, joy caught mid-laugh. I slid it across the table until it rested in front of my daughter. Her breath hitched. Her eyes dropped. For a long time, she just stared. When I finally spoke, it was barely more than a whisper. Your mother would never have done this. The room went still. Even Ben looked away, giving the moment its due silence. I stood. That's all. Jessica didn't move. She just kept looking at the photo as if it were still capable of forgiving her. Ben gathered the papers, his voice quiet. This meeting is adjourned. Kyle rose first, muttering something about lawyers and vultures. Jessica followed, slow, the photograph trembling in her hand. She didn't put it back on the table. She took it with her. The door closed behind them, soft as a sigh. Ben exhaled. You all right? I am, I said. For the first time in years. He nodded. Then let the silence finish what we started. Days passed like slow rain. No calls, no letters. The world, for the first time in decades, stopped asking me to fix it. I didn't need to go looking for news of her. It came anyway, the way truth always does. A cousin mentioned that Jessica and Kyle had moved out of their temporary apartment. Couldn't make rent, he said softly, as if poverty were contagious. Ben told me, with a lawyer's detachment, that the leasing company had repossessed their SUV, found it parked crooked in a street they'd never admit to living on. I pictured the scene. The tow truck's steel arms lifting the vehicle that once symbolized their power. The mechanical groan as it left the curb. The echo of wealth being unmade. There's no poetry in collapse, only symmetry. One evening, curiosity, or maybe mercy, led me to look her up. Her social media page still existed. The last post was a month old. Her on a yacht, sunlight bending around her like flattery. Living my best life, the caption read. The irony was almost gentle. After that, nothing. No photos, no smiles, no curated proof of existence. The feed had gone still, a gallery of ghosts framed in filters. I didn't feel triumph. I felt a quiet kind of mourning. The girl I'd once carried on my shoulders was gone long before the money was. I had just been too busy funding the illusion to notice her absence. The silence of my house was no longer heavy. It was clean, like air after a storm. I spent my mornings fixing small things, oiling hinges, rewiring the lamp Laura had loved, tending the garden she'd planted in the spring before she passed. There's a strange peace in repair, in giving care to things that stay. One afternoon, Ben called. The trust transfer cleared, he said. It's done. Haven House takes possession tomorrow. For a long moment, I didn't speak. Then I said, Good. Laura would have liked that. He chuckled softly. She would have made sure you didn't forget the donation receipt. We both laughed, and it felt like forgiveness. The next day, I stood inside the penthouse for the first time since the locks changed. The rooms were empty, stripped clean of the expensive furniture, the noise, the vanity. The echo of my footsteps filled the space where Jessica's laughter used to pretend to live. The two women from Haven House stood beside me, hands clasped, eyes wide, They spoke softly, as if afraid to disturb the stillness. I handed one of them the keys. Simple, silver, honest. "It's yours now," I said. "Use it well. Make it a safe place." The woman nodded, her eyes shining. "We will, Mr. Sterling. Thank you. This will change lives." "No," I told her gently. "It will repair them. Change is easy. Repair takes faith." When they left, I walked through the penthouse one last time. The windows framed the city I'd helped design, towers, roads, bridges, all built on the same principles I had forgotten to apply to my own life. A strong foundation, steady lines, integrity in every joint. I paused by the balcony, where the view stretched for miles. The wind was cool and clean. Below me, the city pulsed with small human stories. People trying, failing, forgiving, rebuilding. I thought of Jessica. Somewhere out there, she was learning the weight of quiet things. Rent receipts, job rejections, maybe even regret. I hoped one day she'd stop running from the sound of her own footsteps and start walking toward herself. Because that's what I'd finally done. I looked around the room, the bare walls, the sunlight streaking across the empty floor, and smiled. "This is what a foundation feels like," I whispered. "Empty, honest, ready." I locked the penthouse for the last time at sunrise. The air was cool, still half asleep, and the city hadn't yet remembered its noise. The key turned easily, the sound soft and final. I didn't pocket it. I set it down on the marble counter, a small, shining surrender. Let the world keep it. I was done owning things that never truly belonged to me. The elevator ride down felt different this time. When I had first come here, years ago, I rode it like a badge. The man who'd given his daughter the view she'd always wanted. Now, I rode it like a man leaving behind a story he'd outgrown. At the lobby, the doorman nodded politely, unaware he'd just witnessed the end of an inheritance and the beginning of a legacy. Outside, the morning light caught the glass towers and turned them gold. They looked beautiful, fragile even, the way truth does when it stops hiding. Back home, the garden was waiting. The oak trees Laura and I planted had grown thick and sure, their roots woven deep beneath the soil. The sunlight fell through the branches in pieces, and the air smelled like green life and old promises kept. I poured myself a cup of coffee. Black, strong, quiet. The kitchen was still, but not empty. It held the kind of silence that means something. Not absence, but peace. On the table lay a single envelope from Ben. Inside, the official confirmation, the Laura Sterling Memorial Trust, fully established, active, permanent. Below that, a note in his handwriting. "You did good, David." She'd be proud. I set it beside Laura's photograph, the same one I'd shown Jessica. In it, she stood on that desert road, smiling into the sun, eyes full of something I'd only just learned to understand. Clarity. For a while, I just looked at her. And in that silence, I realized something I hadn't before. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Jessica. Not at myself. Not even at the past. You can't build peace out of punishment. You build it out of boundaries, out of the strength to close doors. Not to trap others out, but to give yourself room to breathe again. I walked through the house, the floors creaking like old friends, and felt the quiet settle in around me. It wasn't the silence of being alone. It was the sound of everything unnecessary finally gone. In the living room, the phone sat on the table, powered off, just where I'd left it. For a moment, I thought about turning it back on. Maybe she'd left a message. Maybe she hadn't. It didn't matter. Love doesn't vanish when trust does. It just stops asking for attention. I stepped outside onto the porch. The air was cool, sweet. Somewhere a neighbor's dog barked, and the world kept turning exactly as it should. I took a long breath, deep enough to fill every hollow space grief had left behind. For years, I'd mistaken giving for loving, building comfort instead of character. But I finally understood what Laura had tried to tell me all along. You can't protect someone from growing up wrong, but you can protect what's right in yourself. The morning wind moved through the trees, soft as forgiveness. I whispered into it, "Thank you, Laura. I'm home now." And for the first time, I meant it. Epilogue. The last lesson. Sometimes the people we love most teach us the hardest truths. Not through kindness, but through loss. Jessica thought she took everything from me that day on the highway. She didn't. She gave me back my name. If you're listening to this, and you've ever been torn between helping someone and saving yourself, remember this. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're self-respect wearing armor. Lock the door when you must. Forgive when you can. And when the silence finally arrives, don't fill it. Let it speak. It's been 7 years. Sometimes I still dream of that road. The one where the dust rose behind her car and the sky looked too wide for mercy. In the dream, I'm standing there again, the bottle of water in my hand. But this time, I'm not waiting for rescue. I just watch the sun climb until it burns the past clean. People say time heals. It doesn't. It refines. It takes the noise and grinds it down until only the truth remains. The kind you can live with. I still live in the same house. The locks I changed that day have tarnished slightly, edges dulled from years of use. I like that. It means the metal has settled into its purpose, like me. The garden's fuller now. The oaks throw wider shadows. I talk to Laura there sometimes, the way you talk to someone who's never really left. When the wind moves through the leaves, I hear her voice, gentle, amused. You finally learned to rest, David. Most days I volunteer at Haven House. The women there call me Mr. S, though a few have figured out the name on the plaque by the door. They don't ask about the story behind it, but some evenings, one of them will linger after dinner and say, "Who was Laura?" I tell them. She believed in rebuilding what others threw away. That's usually enough. Last month I saw Jessica, not in person, in a newspaper photo. She was standing beside a community center ribbon cutting in another state, her hair shorter, her eyes older. The caption read, "Program Director, Renewal Outreach." I read the name twice. Then I set the paper down and smiled. Maybe time had been working on her too, refining the edges we both left sharp. I didn't feel pride or pity, just peace. She had found her own road, and it didn't matter if she ever knew I'd been walking mine all along. At night, when the city quiets, I sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and watch the lights flicker across the hills. The air smells of rain and memory. If I close my eyes, I can almost taste that first sip of warm water in the desert. The one that told me I'd live. Not just survive. Live. I've come to believe we all get one moment that defines us. A single instant when the world stops asking who you love and starts asking who you are. That day on the highway was mine. It stripped everything away until only truth was left. And truth, I've learned, doesn't need to shout. It just waits for you to listen. I take another sip, let the night settle, and whisper the words I wish I'd known sooner. Love isn't what you keep giving. It's what finally lets you go. The wind carries it somewhere beyond the trees, and I let it. Tomorrow I'll wake, water the garden, and pour 2 cups of coffee. One for me, one for Laura. That's how peace lives here now. Quietly, faithfully, without needing to prove a thing. And when the morning sun hits the window just right, I can almost see her smile reflected there. The same smile that once told me the silence wasn't empty. It was full of answers. Final reflection. If you've ever been left standing in your own kind of desert, bottle in hand, heart half full, take it from me. Sometimes being left behind is the only way to find your way home. The world looks smaller now from my porch, not because I've shrunk, but because I've stopped chasing what was never mine to hold. Every evening the sun slides behind the trees, and for a few golden seconds the light hits the old brass house numbers I never changed. They still spell Sterling. Not wealth, not pride, just a name that learned to stay. I keep her photo on the table beside my chair, Laura in that endless Arizona light. She's been gone more than a decade, yet sometimes I swear she waits for me in the corner of my vision, smiling the way she did when she'd already figured out the answer and was letting me find it myself. I tell her, "It worked out, love. Maybe not the way we planned, but it worked." And I mean it. The garden is quiet except for the low hum of cicadas. Some evenings a breeze moves through the oak leaves, and I hear laughter. Not hers, not mine, just life reminding me it goes on. That's all legacy really is, motion that continues when you stop pushing it. I still get letters from Haven House, stories of women who found safety under the same roof that once held my daughter's mirrors. They sign their names with careful gratitude. I hang the letters in the study. It's the only gallery I need. Sometimes I drive out to the desert, the same road, the same line of sky. There's nothing left of that day, no bottle, no tire marks, not even the ghost of dust. The wind has cleaned it all. I stand there anyway, hat in hand, and thank the heat for telling me the truth the way only silence can. If anyone stops to ask what I'm doing out there, I just smile and say, "Taking attendance." When I get home, I brew 2 cups of coffee. I set one by Laura's picture. I drink the other slow. That's our ritual now. Proof that love doesn't end. It simply changes its shape until it fits the life that's left. I've come to believe forgiveness isn't a decision. It's a place. You walk there one small step at a time until the sound of your own heart no longer startles you. Tonight, the sky is clear. The air smells of rain that hasn't fallen yet. A promise in reverse. I write these words in the margin of my notebook, not for anyone else, just to remember. The silence wasn't punishment. It was freedom, learning my name. I close the notebook. The wind shifts, gentle. Somewhere, far off, a train passes. The same low, steady hum that once carried me away from a desert road and toward myself. And that's where I'll leave it. Not with an ending, but a continuation whispered to whoever needs it next. When they leave you behind, don't chase the car. Stand still, let the dust settle. Then start walking. That's how home begins.